Right, let's look at the very first incarnation process that you go through. In fact, your very first visit to Earth, if you like. Right? In this case, because you're all here on Earth. What happens is the soul separates into two halves.
Does the soul feel, each soul feel that at that moment?
No, because it's not conscious of its own experience yet.
Like a male and a female heart, or are there both?
There's lots of different combinations. Well, when you think about it, there's only 3 possible combinations. You think about it. If you've got a whole complete and it's separating into half and it's separating into a male or a female body, it can only be either a male and a male and a male, or a female and a female. Can it not? There's no other combination.
You said they separate. So they were once one and they separate.
They were once one soul and they separate into 2 halves. You are right now one half of your soul.
For what purpose do they separate?
We'll get there.
Same wall.
Yeah.
I know.
There's months worth more.
Is it common to animals and rocks and plants?
No. The soul can only incarnate into a human form.
So you can't come back as a dog or something?
No.
Each half of the soul has an individuality.
Each half of the soul has an individuality. I'll just get back to that question about animals. The reason why you sometimes think that somebody might have come back as an animal is because there is a law of attraction at work between the person who's passed and that animal that you feel. Your friend or partner or child or whatever that you may feel is that animal actually is a spirit who loves that animal. Do you follow me? And as a result, you feel that coming from that animal. The animal behaviour will actually change based on the emotions of the people that are surrounding it. And when I say people, I'm not just talking about earth-based people, I'm talking about the souls that are surrounding it. That make sense? Sort of? No? Your question statement?
Yeah, I'm just saying about the soul, half souls have individuality. And,
they only have individuality once they've incarnated. Because when you say individuality, let's separate 2 things. There's individuality, then there's individualisation. Individuality to me is like differences in personality. All of us are all individuals. Your halves of your soul are individuals, if you like, of the one whole. Right? So there's different qualities in each half of the soul that when it emerges will make the one complete. They are called, what do you reckon?
Soulmates.
Soulmates.
So when God created the whole soul, the passions and desires that are in the soul, are they similar then because of the soulmate male-female thing?
They will be similar and then complementary.
Complementary, that's the word, yeah.
Yeah, similar or complementary.
So when your soul joins back together,
Yep.
what happens if...
We'll get to when it joins back together when we come up through this.
But what happens if one half of the soul led a really peaceful life and one half of the soul didn't?
Well, the soul combines even with all of those emotions, but there's a process that the one who lived a non-peaceful life, a violent life, that they will need to go through to work through some of their emotions. But those memories will be retained by both the complete unit at the end. But every memory, you think about it with your own life, you have memories that are emotional, don't you? And you have memories that are no longer emotional, don't you? Why? Because you've dealt with it. And it's very much the same here. Eventually you get to the stage in your progression where you have all the memories of your existence, but no emotional attachment to those memories because they are now dealt with. They've become a part of your experience and they've defined your personality, but they are no longer something that you get emotional about. So, for example, you've all heard of Luther, the founder of the Lutheran religion. Well, when he was on Earth, he had some pretty bad viewpoints. Did you know that? I know the recent movie about him sort of painted him with a glowing portrait, But he had some terrible viewpoints about women. He called women subclass, and he said the best way to keep a woman was to keep her in the home. Barefoot and pregnant, yeah, there's an extension of it. Now, Luther is now one of those spirits that I have mentioned who's up above what's called the eighth sphere of the spirit world. And he's in the celestial kingdom. He is actually at one with God now. So he had to go through the process of working through those emotions. Does that make sense? All right, when they incarnate, obviously the material bodies and spiritual bodies are created by what? That lovely thing called sex that all of you want to do. Right? So your genetic creation at the spirit body level is created at the same time as your genetic creation in the material body level. A spirit form and a material form is created at the same time, and the soul incarnates. Now, when I say incarnates, there's this viewpoint that most people have that it goes inside somehow. The truth is that the soul actually attaches itself to those bodies.
Isn't the soul all alone?
Sorry.
If this is a soulmate, though, they have to be born on the same day then, basically.
No.
Oh.
No.
Because if they incarnate, if they get split up, it's not half a soul floating around somewhere.
Yes, there is.
Incarnating.
Yes, there is. What happens is the riskier half of the soul incarnates first, and the other half of the soul remains in this soul state until it is attracted to an incarnation as well. Now, there might be a gap of up to even 20 years between those two events.
What do you mean by riskier?
Sorry?
What do you mean by riskier?
Usually one half of the soul has a more riskier nature, a riskier part of the personality, and it's that half that incarnates.
Where's the other half of your soul?
On Earth?
Do you know who it is?
Yes. You want to know?
Yes.
No, I'm not telling you. No, the reason why is because she needs to go through this whole process of this emotional process too. And obviously if she's got the projections of lots of other people doing that, then it's going to be very, very difficult for her. But I do know exactly who she is. And
How do you know that?
I knew the instant I looked into her eyes.
So, was it the same for you in your first incarnation?
Yes.
You knew the instant you looked into her eyes then?
Yes. Yes.
So, are we always the male and the female?
No. The Apostle John, you would have all heard of the Apostle John, like from the Bible. The Apostle John has a male soulmate.
Who was your first?
Sorry?
In your first incarnation?
Yeah.
Which person or was your...
I'm happy to tell you that. That was Mary Magdalene. That's as far as I'm going to go. What happens is that as you get rid of all of your soulmate-based injuries, you will be able to recognise your soulmate. A lot of attractions on Earth at the moment are based around injury attraction. In other words, my injury is compatible with your injury, so we get together. Right? Now, when one of them grows, what happens then? The relationship disbands often. Right? Now, a soulmate relationship isn't like that. A soulmate relationship is not based on injuries. In fact, the lady who is my soulmate now, my soulmate always has been my soulmate, by the way, but the physical form she is in now, I would not normally have been attracted to because of my injuries that I've retained during this experience.
Are there many soulmates you could have in the world?
No.
Well, how do you get attracted on the other side of the world and the different religions? Can that happen?
Certainly, but what happens, if you understand the soulmate process, what happens is the first half of the soul incarnates, right? Now, let's say it's a baby and then it moves to another country. What will happen is the second half of the soul, there's a very, very strong law of attraction between the two halves of the soul. And the second half of the soul follows around, if you like, the first half of the soul. And when it's ready to incarnate, when I say ready, it's based on the law of attraction from parents and so forth, it incarnates very close to the location of the first half of the soul. But of course the first half could move back to its original home. Right? And then they might be the whole world apart. But the law of attraction operates in such a way that those two will eventually probably meet each other during their lifetime on Earth, in particular if they are sensitive to their own emotional state. There is really only one lifetime. I've really only had one. The soul, remember, I'm talking about the soul. The soul is the real you, so there is only one lifetime, yours, right now.
Why is it so many people don't meet their soulmate?
Because of the injuries. The more injuries I have, I can walk past my soulmate in the street and not recognise her or him.
If one half dies, or dies,
Yep.
has it happened for the other half to die as well, to be combined in the spiritual world again, and
No.
then split up again, or
No. No. By the way, the two soulmate halves can recombine here on Earth. It's never been done before, but they can. The two halves of the soul can also recombine even if one half is in the spirit world and one half is on Earth. And the two halves of the soul can recombine in the spirit world, and that certainly has been done many times.
They recombine. What does it mean?
Well, let's get to there first. There's a fair bit between here and there. So let's do that. So that's the process. So that process I would call the process of incarnation. Does that make sense? Incarnation.
Is there a reason why God made that so complicated? Why is that so?
It's actually not complicated. It's quite simple, isn't it?
Carne in Italian means meat or flesh.
Yeah. And what actually is happening is that the way God created it is that the earth where we're living is the nursery of the soul. This is where you learn your beginning lessons of the soul that God wishes to teach you if you choose to make a choice to be taught. Now, the reason for the incarnation into the material format first is because it is the simplest of all formats of life. And so that is the one you incarnate into first. At the moment you incarnate, you are now individualised. So if a woman had an abortion, for example, or a miscarriage, it's a soul you're miscarrying, not just a fetus, but actually a soul. And those souls pass into the spirit world and they are looked after by other mothers because they've already been individualised. I've actually talked to some who have been looked after.
They don't come back.
They don't need to, no. Some will choose to, but they don't need to.
Just a comment, it's really quite a loving thing that God does, isn't it? Instead of just putting all these souls down and saying, well, go fend for yourself, He's made a perfect partner.
Exactly. Your soulmate is going to be your perfect partner, but only once you've dealt with the emotional injuries. The soulmate can also, with emotional injuries, the soulmate can be your worst nightmare. Well, you imagine if your soulmate, is a murderer and all of those things, and obviously he's somebody's soulmate, right? So it might be yours. There's many instances in history where this has occurred. You've all heard of Nero, the Roman Emperor Nero. Yep. He murdered his own soulmate. Yeah. So they had a few issues to work through.
So that went into the spirit then?
Yes, she passed into spirit. She was a Christian in the first century. She passed into spirit, and he passed later. And it took nearly 1,000 years for them to get together. And she was very patient, as you can imagine.
You've got no choice, have you?
Yeah. So she'd worked through all of her emotions. She was in a place called the Celestial Heavens, and he was still in the place that people call the Hells, and she went down and assisted him to get to where she was. It's a beautiful arrangement, actually. It gives you 2 chances to do everything. Right?
Why do they want to be together, the two halves of the circle?
You don't feel complete without the other half of yourself once you get into a state of at one with God. So when I say complete, I don't mean completely happy. You are completely happy. So I'm completely happy to live without my soulmate, but I don't feel complete without her. Do you follow the difference?
So is there a point in time in the spirit or wherever that people have spirits have a feeling for who their soulmate is? Like,
yes. Usually it occurs in the 5th sphere of the spirit world. We'll talk about that in a minute. Right, let's progress, shall we? Incarnation. I know you'd have lots of questions about that, right? Every one of these things that I'm raising, you could ask, honestly, you could spend 3 or 4 hours discussing each one and still not know everything there is to know, of course. Like, I've spent 2,000 years investigating these things, so it's not going to all be covered in a few hours, right?
Is time there the same as time here?
No. No. And in fact, there's different dimensions where time actually changes. Things about time change. And we'll talk about that too.
Do the 2 soulmates have to get together romantically, or are they going to be married to different people but just still be attracted?
Eventually they will desire to fit together romantically. So I've been single for 4.5 years waiting for my soulmate to appear, and she appeared a few weeks ago.
Does she know that?
No. Get back to this.